Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm T with Teresa H Creates, and this is the third video in my specimen card ephemera video series. This was the first video. I made these specimen cards using junk melt envelopes, and they all slide out here. And this was a lot of fun. So these are nice large specimen cards for your nice large images. I liked those a lot. And then something different, I had these cardboard slide mounts. And so video 2, I did these fun little specimen slides. Those were a lot of fun as well. And those are nice small images. I had these little cardboard slide mounts for a while in my stash, and so I wanted to just use them. I realized that not everyone has those. So in the third video, I wanted to show you how to make something similar to this using stuff that you have on hand. And you can either use cardboard for these third types, or you can use craft paper, a thicker cardstock. In this case, I did use some craft paper, but these were originally a set of pre-folded cards. Aren't those cute? So I've got some large, I've got these medium, and then I've got the small slides, but this is what I am going to show you how to make today. I have a lot of these pre-folded cards in my stash. I make my own card bases now, so I don't really use them as often. So I've been trying to find ways to use them and pull them from my stash. And so I recently used these to make some 3x3 cards. These aren't a traditional A2 size. This is 5.5, which is A2, but it's 4 inches instead of 4 1/4. So not a true A2 size. So then again, it also just doesn't fit the size card that I usually make, missing that little bit of a 1/4 inch. But I did use those and cut them down to make these little 3x3 note cards. So then I was left with all these cutoffs, right? And at the time I said, you know what, I'll find a use for these. I'll put them in my stash. I didn't know what I was going to use them for, and I didn't know that I was going to use them so soon. But after I started playing around with those slide mounts, I thought those are perfect for these little guys. So let me pull out my supplies and we will get started. I'm going to use a non-slick mat for all of my inking and prepping with my tape. I've been using packing tape for my mounting because it makes that nice shine so it looks like a glass slide, I think. And it's much less expensive than my acetate. So here are the guys that I'm going to work on today. We'll get through a few of these. I tried to do a good representation of all of these different types of slides. And so I've got these pre-cut, and I did go ahead and ink around the inside edges with some walnut stain. Now, I didn't want to use just a simple square or rectangle to cut out these centers. So I actually went to my dies and I found all of these little label dies that I had in my stash. These are super cute. If I remember where I got these, then I will link them. They all have nested dies that are a little bit smaller, so these worked out perfectly. So then I got to cut out these nice, fun little shapes here. And then I had just a few more in my stash that I thought were a good size. These are just single ones. So I've got this guy and then this one. The tip of this is has been snapped off. So just ignore that part. It still works. It's still functioning. And it was a little bit larger, so that was also a good option. But I liked having all of these nice decorative windows. So let's pull out some more of the little images that I've kind of selected. I've got these guys. I don't know that we'll use all of those. I just wanted to pull out some stuff. I have my background papers. So I've got just some cream colored cardstock already cut down to size. I have some French dictionary page. And then I went through and I made a ton of labels. So I stamped these out, I cut them, and then inked around the edges so that they are ready to go. And I'm going to set those just up here until we get ready to decorate. I found that the easiest thing to start with is probably going to be these guys. Then I'm going to use the double-sided tape on so that you can see front and back, because my hands are clean right now. Once your hands get dirty, messing with that tape is pretty tricky. So let me pull out my slides that are double-sided. So these will kind of just hang in the middle. And is this what I intended? It might not be. There we go. That's what I intended. I might need to find something that's a little bit smaller for this one, because that is quite large. So this little guy is actually printed on acetate, and I'm going to go ahead and use it. So it's not a sticker, but, and it's not printed on both sides, but you can still see the image. So I am going to use that. So let me set these aside, and I'm going to pull off a couple of pieces of tape. And then here we go. You definitely want to work with a clean surface when you're messing with this packing tape like this. All right, let's go ahead and position this guy. Looks like that's about center-ish. There we go. Be very careful. I just kind of fold it over and then burnish it down. And so now we've got a nice piece for our slide. Now I'm going to remove this from the actual backing so that you can see through it just a little bit better. Then I'm carefully, very carefully going to try to place this center-ish. Again, lay it out, there we go. And then fold this up. There we go. And now I go ahead and give it a trim so that some of these layers that are off don't start sticking to everything. All right, now let's go ahead and try to mount these. So this is what I do. So this is going to be the front side of my slide, and I'm going to put a little bit of tape here and then a little bit of this tape on the bottom. And this is so that I can get this positioned. And so this is going to be this one. Okay. Make sure we got a nice burnish on it. See, I don't need quite this much tape, so I'm going to give it another haircut. The width of the packing tape works great with these. Okay, there we go. And then that's the hope that the tape will pick it up. Now I'm going to run tape all along the back side of this. And then we're also going to come in with our wet glue. So I'm using my art glitter glue, and I am going to apply it here. We just want these to just kind of be stuck, right? I'm going to fold it over, and then there we go. We've got the beginnings of a slide. How pretty is that? So I am going to go ahead and give it a burnish. Make sure everything's down nice and tight. Okay. And now we'll do our little bee here. Let's trim this up quite a bit. And I don't know, he might need to go, he might fit better this, well, no, see the tape is too short this way. So he definitely is going to have to fit this way, but I might be able to find a better shape for him. That one's not bad, he fits. He does fit in this perfectly, so we are going to use this one. So this I cut down to a 2x2 size because I just wanted to show you that you didn't have to use the larger size like I am. You can cut it down and make it smaller so that it looks more like those slides that I was using before. So I'm going to add some tape and then try to get this positioned correctly. There we go. I'm going to run a little bit of tape along these edges because I don't want it to be visible behind the bee. All right, we're going to get all of this down. Now, the way I made this when I did the two sides of the tape, it was so that it would go in one of these guys right here. That was the double-sided cut so you can see through it like this. And we had to improvise a little bit so it doesn't have a backing, so it's just going to have that plain craft paper backing, which honestly I think I'm okay with. So now I know what that looks like at least, right? Okay, there are a few of these guys that we're going to mount on cardstock and dictionary paper. So this is what I've got here. So this is just the plain cardstock. I didn't do any coloring of it, right? And so this is the cardstock that I inked up. And I inked this up with the same ink that I used here for these backgrounds. And it works with this because of all of the pattern and everything, but I didn't love this color behind this. And I was using the frayed burlap distress oxide. So that's what that color is back there. And again, I mean, it looks fine. I'm fine with it. I just don't love it. I guess it's too much of a yellow color. So I wanted to see if we could try something different. But then I switched to using the dictionary page behind there because I thought that gave it some interest and it looked good. And it already had some aging going on because it is an antique dictionary. So let's see what we've got. I think I'm going to go ahead and ink up some of this background, but I wanted to use something a little bit different. And I thought I might use the crushed olive on this background and just see what that looks like. So here we go. Just adding a little bit of color in here. I'm getting all these little swirly marks because I've been going straight to the card instead of starting off the edge and working my way in, but that's fine. Now I wonder, what if I put some water on that? I'm gonna go ahead and give this a little spritz. See what that does. It might make it look a little bit aged. Let me give that a second to dry, see what happens there. Let me wipe this off. I'm gonna grab my walnut stain. Go ahead and get this guy inked up. I want to cover up as much of that white border as possible. Make it look a little bit aged. Then I used the brayer trick, the brayer method, to ink up those junk mail envelopes that I used. So I used the brayer method on this to go ahead and give that some color. So I'm going to do the same thing here, just to give this a little bit of color without it being too much, because I don't love just the plain background, but I do think it needs a little something. So that helps, that works. Try to get that center-ish. All right, and this guy, what am I going to do with this? I'm going to use some of my wild honey. Let's see what kind of look I can get with that. I've never started this early with getting ephemera ready for a project, so this has been nice. I'm going to be using all of these specimen cards on my Cabinet of Curiosities journal that I'll be working on, and I'm not starting it until end of October, maybe beginning of November. But it's been nice to get some ephemera knocked out for it. All right, let's get this guy glued down. And then I've been covering them with the tape. I've had to be really careful as I get into the middle of these, and I'm really working these, and my hands have gotten inky and they've gotten a lot of glue on them. It gets a little bit more difficult. All right, let me trim these off. So we're going to use the same method to attach these. All right. Now let's see. I've got this guy. I'm going to do there. And then this guy. Is this the one that I was doing? That is not the one that I was going to do. There we go. So I think adding this book page for the background really adds a little something. So I want plenty of writing on each side. I'm going to go ahead and put the tape down. Try to get it center-ish. There we go. And then I'll give these a cut. Let's see. I hope I left enough room on the bottom of that. I'm a little bit concerned that I did not, but we will see. And then I want to do one more. So what do you do if your die cut that you have or your punch that you're going to use is larger than the width of the tape, right? So I did have that come up because that punch that I use over here, this guy, it's wider than the tape. So I couldn't use the tape on it, but it can still be done. And so it doesn't have the cover on it, but we can still make it work. I'm going to stamp something right in there. So let's find something large. I've got all of these huge beetles. I think I like this guy right here. I think that is a good one. Okay, so I'm going to use my VersaFine Clear and Pine Cone. Ink this guy up. I haven't used this stamp. So, yep. I'm going to prime it. There we go. All right. Don't know that I love that. You know what? I am going to move it from the slick surface. That way it doesn't move when I actually press down on the stamp. But I'm going to put another one right up here. And we'll just go with the best one. And I think it might be that one. Perfect. Let me clean my stamp off. All right. Now, I'm going to set this aside and leave it because I don't want to decorate with it actually in the center because it doesn't have a cover that we would be able to just easily wipe off, right? We've got our little guys done. Let's go ahead and give them a trim. I did go ahead and round the corners, but I didn't want it to be like some obvious rounding, so I used the smallest of these little guys here. So I'm going to go ahead and give those all a punch and get those corners rounded. Now would be the perfect time to trim up your length if you were wanting to do that. If you were wanting to make these a little bit smaller, now is the perfect time for trimming. I love these nice big labels. So I made all these labels. I got a new stamp set. You guys will be excited. So you're not going to see all of the same exact stamps, right? So I did get a new stamp set. And it's this one. It's the Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous. And it's the Field Notes. I felt like I just kind of needed it for this whole project that I'm working on. So it wasn't cheap. Tim Holtz stuff isn't cheap. And I ended up just purchasing it off Amazon. I want to say it was probably 22 US dollars. So it was a bit of a splurge for me. But the thing that I know is that this is red rubber. Tim Holtz has quality stuff. This is a quality stamp set. I'm okay with spending that money on occasion. So I did use this large filled label stamp, but I cut them apart because obviously this entire stamp is not going to fit there. So I cut them apart and I have just filled labels, and then I have all this piece up here. I did stamp out this guy. This is it, it's collect. And then I had all these little tags that I stamped out and cut and then just stamped like numbers and things on them. So that's kind of what I'm using to decorate some of the bigger pieces. And we are going to start doing some stamping before we actually put those down because I have some larger stamps that I want to use. All right, on this guy, I am liking this identification check stamp. There we go. It's a good one. And go there. Doesn't have to be used on every single one of them. I do want them to look a little bit different. They don't have to be exactly the same. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and attach the labels. I just wanted to get that large stamp on there first. And now if anything gets stamped over these labels, I don't care. That's bonus. All right. Okay, and then this one, what was I thinking of putting it here? And I think I'll wait on that. Okay, now we'll keep stamping. I keep forgetting about this guy up here. I was wondering where that other collection tag was gonna go. That filed was not on there. There is a filed stamp on this collection. Where is it? Here. And so I used it and stamped it in red over there. And then this little guy has this right here. I liked the specimen up here. So I'm going to very carefully stamp specimen on these, hoping to only get that little bit of the specimen part. If it gets a little bit of the box around it and the stuff below it, I'm fine with that. But let's see, I've just been barely putting it up there, giving it a little tap. And I've been getting that 2 down there, but you know what? That's not really that big a deal. So again, let me see. Just get it. There we go. I like this stamp. It's perfect. I don't think it's going to fit up there. I may have to turn it on its side. We can go ahead and try though. Oh, it did fit. So cute. Get that down here. Perfect. And I think it'll fit on this as well. We'll go ahead and get it there. Perfect. Let's go ahead and get my received stamped on these guys. Here is my fired brick. Perfect. This is the oxide, and you know what? I'm thinking about it. I don't think I used the oxide. I think I used the distress. But this is working, so I'm not going to mess with it. this as received. And then I can get this little guy as received. There we go. Perfect, perfect. I love my series of numbers, but there's a smaller series of numbers here for this little guy. And I was just using this to add a little bit of color, right? So the received and then these little numbers, just add some color. So let's see. There we go. Peeled paint, distress ink. So let's do this. There we go. So pretty. Oops. They're too cute. If they're overlapping, that's even better. Let's do... Getting off camera again. I start working in tighter spaces. Set my numbers aside. Let's do this little guy. Perfect. All right, let's see what else we've got. We need more layers. Oh, here's my inspected. Love the inspected. Let's pull the black ink out for that. Get it stamped. Aren't these the cutest? I am just absolutely loving this. And of course, anything that I have left over will be perfect to just put in my stash with all my other ephemera, because I would definitely use these again. They're too cute. I also have an as found. Let's try to bring in another color for this as found. I usually do it in a black, but let's see if something else would look good here. We want it to show up too. We're going to use the scorched timber here. As found. And this one, I'm going to stamp right across the label. That does not need it. That does not need it. And then this one, I'll put it there. See, I can have restraint. These are a lot of fun though. Okay, we have some open areas. So a good thing to put down for these open areas is to find one of these seals. So we'll go ahead and use that. I'm going to go back to this guy, my onyx black, but I am going to use second generation stamps for these so that they're not quite as dark. See? That guy. Isn't that a nice touch? Very nice. All right, and then I had these figure 1, 2, and 3 stamps, and it was just one stamp to begin with, and then I cut it apart. Feel free to do that. Look, they're still usable, but I didn't want to do 1, 2, and 3 like that. I wanted to use them as individual stamps. So that is what we're going to do. Let's do figure 1. Let's see what this looks like. Is that going to be too much color? Let's try it and see. No, it's fine. That does not need anything. I think that one looks good, although we can add. All right, let's switch out figure 1. I like the 3. We'll do figure 3 now. Wrong way. Come on. There we go. So we're going to go with this little beetle bug right here. Hopefully I cut enough space because I keep doing that. I keep just going in and just cutting stuff. There we go. So let me trim him down. You know what? I am going to attach this and then I'm going to trim him down. Okay. Now I'm going to put this down. Perfect. That is why I was using that nonstick mat for all of this. Give it a trim. Give it a trim. I'm going to add our wet glue. Give it a good burnish. Okay, and then this happens sometimes. I was getting extra along here, and so I just trim it. If you end up folding it and one side is a little bit long than the other, then just give it a little bit of a trim. Make it nice and even. And then we'll round these corners. All right, and the only thing left to do is ink up these edges. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this whole series. I hope that this gives you some ideas. Craft paper is perfect for this. If you have some old card bases laying around and you can use those, then that's perfect as well. Don't be afraid to pull your stamps and to play around a little bit. Cut some larger labels in half. Only use sections of a stamp. And like I said, all of these stamps that I used had nothing to do with field notes. Not all of them did. And I still use them and they still turn out fantastic. They look really good. Don't be afraid to use pattern backgrounds. I really, really love the way the pattern background makes these look. It kind of adds just a little bit of a vintage touch to it. But dictionary pages, encyclopedia pages, perfect for this. Got a lot of different looks. All right, so let's take a closer look at what we made. So here's our little bee. And it does not have a background. We had to improvise, so it does not have a background, but still looks really good. This, I think, is my absolute favorite. I love the way that butterfly looks in there. This is running a close second. I just love the way that dictionary page looks. These guys are so nice. I'm glad I decided to go ahead and go in with the brayer on these. It looks good. And then this one is the one that I use the water on the background, so you can still see the watermark back there. And then if you want more contrast, here's just that cream cardstock with a little bit of that color brayered on. And then if you want to be completely transparent, then there we go. Washi stickers are perfect for that. Front and back, you can see straight through it. Such a pretty look. So this can still be done even if you don't want to put a layer of packing tape, or if your punch is wider than your layer of packing tape, you can still make this work. There is one thing I want to add to this. So I have some of this. This isn't Wink of Stella. This is like Wink of Stella, but it adds a bit of this shine, and it's already in this chocolate color. And beetles, as you know, always have a little bit of a hard shell, right? And so they've got this kind of shine to them, and some of them are just iridescent anyway. But I wanted to make our beetle pop by adding some of this shimmer. So again, this is like a Wink of Stella, except that it's in a chocolate shimmer, and I did get this from scrapbook.com. Look, he can have some sparkle and shine. Can you see it? There you go. He shimmers. So don't forget to bring out your sparkles. I did the same with this one here. Is it this one? No, this one here. I did the same with it. This is actually the Wink of Stella on here, but then I covered it up so you can only see it slightly, I think. It may not be coming through on your end, but it does on my end. So that one does sparkle. But there we go. Let me know which one of these is your favorite, if you don't mind. Let me know which one of these you're most eager to try out, or that you've already tried out, what you want to make. And we have like 3 different types of specimen cards. I absolutely love these. This was a lot of fun. If you have any questions for me, put them down in the comment section and I'll be sure to answer. Thanks for spending some time with me, and until next time, bye.